The bus ride home was supposed to be just another ordinary afternoon for Liam. He had his earbuds in, scrolling through his phone, barely paying attention to the people around him. But then, something made him look up. Near the back of the bus, a girl around his age sat with her shoulders tense, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She wasn't just sitting, she was shrinking into herself, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Her eyes darted toward the man beside her, a much older man with a tight grip on her wrist. Liam's stomach tightened. Something felt wrong. The girl wasn't moving, wasn't speaking, but her entire body radiated fear. The man leaned toward her, whispering something Liam couldn't hear. She flinched. Liam glanced around the bus. No one else seemed to notice. People were too busy staring at their phones, lost in their own worlds. Was he imagining things? Maybe she was just scared of crowds. Maybe it was nothing. But then, her eyes met his, and that's when Liam saw it. A silent plea for help. His heart pounded. Was he overreacting? Or was this girl in serious danger? The bus was approaching the next stop. If he was right, she was one stop away from vanishing forever. Have you ever noticed someone acting strangely in public? Would you step in or stay quiet? Let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Drop your city below. Liam's pulse raced. The girl was staring right at him, her wide eyes filled with something between fear and desperation. She wasn't saying a word, but her fingers, they were moving. At first, it seemed like nothing, just nervous fidgeting. But then he noticed the deliberate way she tucked her thumb into her palm and slowly folded her fingers over it. Liam's breath caught. He had seen that before, somewhere online. A silent hand signal for help. His stomach clenched as he glanced at the man next to her. He wasn't paying attention to Liam, only keeping his grip firm on the girl's wrist. The way he whispered something in her ear made Liam's skin crawl. This wasn't a misunderstanding. The bus jerked to a stop. The doors hissed open. Liam's heart pounded. The man shifted in his seat, tightening his grip. The girl's hands stiffened. She was running out of time. Liam had only seconds to decide. If he ignored it, she might disappear forever, but if he was right, he had to act. Would Liam take the risk and step in before it was too late? Liam's mind raced. He had seen that hand signal before. It was a universal sign for distress. It wasn't a coincidence. The girl was begging for help without making a sound. His stomach twisted. This wasn't just a nervous girl sitting beside a stranger. This was something far worse. The bus rumbled forward, leaving another stop behind. Liam's hands gripped his seat as he realized the terrifying truth. If she got off at the next stop with that man, she might never be seen again. He turned his gaze toward the girl again, trying to keep his expression neutral. She wasn't just scared. She was terrified. The man beside her kept whispering in her ear, his grip tightening around her wrist. He leaned in close, and though Liam couldn't hear the words, he could see how the girl winced. Liam's hands started to shake. He had to do something. But what if he was wrong? What if he made a scene over nothing? That wasn't an option. The girl's fingers trembled as she made the hand signal again, this time slower, more desperate. She was giving him one last chance to understand. Liam's breath hitched. This was real. His heart pounded as he looked around the bus. Why was no one else seeing this? People were either glued to their phones or staring blankly out the window. They were all missing it. Liam clenched his fists. If no one else would step in, he would. The bus lurched forward, and Liam saw the upcoming stop. The next one was just a few blocks away. He turned his gaze back to the man. Was he getting ready to leave with her? The way his body tensed, the way his eyes darted toward the front of the bus, he was preparing to move. Liam's pulse hammered. This was it. If he didn't act now, the girl might vanish forever. Would Liam take the risk and step in before it was too late? Liam's fingers shook as he pulled out his phone. He had to act fast. If he hesitated for even a second longer, this girl could be gone forever. His mind raced. Calling 911 himself might be too obvious. The man could get suspicious, and if he realized Liam was onto him, who knew what he might do? Instead, Liam quickly opened his messages and typed a frantic text to his mom. "Call 911. I think a girl is in danger on my bus. Tall man, gray jacket, gripping her wrist. I think she's been taken." He hit send, praying his mom would see it immediately. But that wasn't enough. He needed to stall. The bus was seconds away from the next stop. He could see the streetlights ahead. If this man got off with her now, Liam would lose them. He had to do something big, something that would get everyone's attention. Taking a deep breath, Liam suddenly stood up. "Hey, isn't that your sister?" He called out loudly, pointing at the girl. The bus went silent. The girl's eyes widened in shock, but then she subtly nodded. Liam felt a rush of adrenaline. That was it. That was her confirmation. The man's head snapped toward him. His grip on the girl's wrist tightened. "What are you talking about, kid?" the man growled, his expression darkening. Liam ignored him, keeping his eyes locked on the girl. "Mom's been looking for you everywhere," he said, forcing a smile. "She's waiting at the next stop." A few passengers turned their heads, now interested in the sudden conversation. People were starting to notice. The girl's breathing was shaky. Was she going to play along? Liam held his breath, silently pleading for her to take the chance. And then she did. Her lips parted slightly. She nodded, just barely, then whispered, "Really?" Liam grinned. "Yeah, I'll take you to her." The man's jaw clenched. He looked around, realizing that too many eyes were now watching. But the bus was slowing down. The doors would open any second. Liam's heart pounded. Would his distraction work, or would the man take her before help arrived? Liam could feel his heartbeat pounding in his ears. The man's grip on the girl hadn't loosened. If anything, it had tightened, as if he knew he was losing control of the situation. The bus was about to stop. The doors were about to open. Liam had to act now. Without wasting another second, he rushed toward the front of the bus. He pushed past passengers who were now paying attention, but still unsure of what was happening. Liam reached the bus driver, a middle-aged man with a serious face, and quickly leaned in, whispering urgently, "Sir, that man in the gray jacket, he's holding that girl against her will. I think she's been kidnapped." The driver's eyes snapped up to the mirror. He took one look at the girl's tearful eyes and the man's tight grip on her wrist, and that was all he needed. His jaw tightened. Without hesitation, he pressed a button near the dashboard. The doors locked. A mechanical click echoed through the bus. Liam let out a breath. The man wasn't getting off. Passengers began murmuring as the bus rolled past the stop instead of opening the doors. The man's head snapped toward the driver. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" he snapped, his voice now filled with panic. The driver kept his eyes forward and spoke calmly into his radio. "Dispatch, this is Bus 47. I have a possible abduction situation. Locking the bus and waiting for law enforcement. Need assistance ASAP." Liam felt his chest loosen slightly. Help was on the way. The man stood up abruptly, yanking the girl's wrist. "Open the damn doors. Now!" The bus driver didn't even flinch. "Sit down, sir. Police are on their way." The man lunged toward the doors, pounding his fists against them. "You can't do this," he shouted. "I have my rights." Passengers gasped, some pulling out their phones, recording the chaotic scene. Liam turned his attention to the girl. She was trembling, but when her tear-filled eyes met his, there was something else there, too. relief. For the first time, she wasn't alone. The sirens were faint, but Liam could hear them approaching. The police were almost there. Would they arrive in time before the man did something desperate? Liam held his breath as flashing red and blue lights flooded through the bus windows. The police had arrived. The bus driver unlocked the doors, and within seconds, 3 officers stormed inside. "Step away from the girl," one of them ordered, guns still holstered but hands ready to react. The man's face paled. He took a step back, his grip loosening on the girl's wrist. But when he saw the officers closing in, he lunged for the doors. Too late. One officer grabbed him, forcing him to the ground. "Let me go! You don't understand!" he shouted, struggling as they pinned him down and cuffed him. The moment the grip on her wrist was gone, the girl staggered backward, shaking. And then she broke down. Tears streamed down her face as she gasped for breath. It was as if she had been holding it all in, forcing herself to be quiet until now. One of the officers knelt beside her, speaking gently. "You're safe now. What's your name, sweetheart?" Through sobs, she whispered, "Emma." Liam swallowed hard. This girl, Emma, had almost vanished forever. Another officer spoke into his radio. "Dispatch, we have the missing girl. Repeat, we have the missing girl." Liam's stomach dropped. "Missing?" The officer turned to Emma. "You were reported missing this morning. Your family has been looking everywhere for you." Emma nodded, still crying. He grabbed me on my way to school. Said if I screamed, he'd hurt me." Her voice broke. "I was so scared." Liam's heart clenched. She had been kidnapped, and he had just saved her life. The officers pulled the man to his feet. His face was red, his expression twisted in fury. "Who is he? Why did he take her?" Liam finally asked, his voice shaky. One officer patted the man down, pulling out a wallet. She opened it, scanning the ID before her eyes widened. "This isn't just some random guy," she muttered. She looked up at her fellow officers, her face suddenly serious. "He's wanted for multiple kidnappings." A horrified silence filled the bus. Passengers gasped, some clutching their chests. The bus driver exchanged stunned glances with Liam. Liam's breath hitched. This wasn't just one kidnapped girl. This man had done this before. What else had this man done? And how many lives had he already destroyed? The bus was completely silent, except for the faint sound of police radios crackling. Everyone, the driver, the passengers, Liam, held their breath as the officers scanned the man's ID. One officer's face went pale. She froze, staring at the screen before exchanging glances with her partner. Then she turned to the handcuffed man, her voice sharp. "You've been running for a long time, haven't you?" The man snarled, trying to pull away, but the officers tightened their grip. "We've got him," one officer said into the radio. "This is the guy, the one from the reports, multiple child abductions, same M.O. He poses as a relative and snatches girls from bus stops." A wave of horror passed through the bus. People whispered in shock. Liam felt his stomach drop. This man had done this before. Emma's breathing grew rapid. She clenched her fists, her entire body shaking. The officer crouched beside her, speaking gently. "Emma, it's over. He can't hurt you anymore." Emma let out a breath. A single tear slipped down her cheek as she nodded. One of the passengers, an older woman, covered her mouth in shock. "How many others were there?" she whispered. The officer's jaw tightened. "More than we know." The reality hit Liam like a brick. Emma wasn't the first. And if no one had noticed her signal, she might not have been the last. The man glared at Liam, his lips curling into a sneer. "You should have minded your own business, kid." Liam didn't flinch. He stared right back. "And you should have picked the wrong bus." The officers hauled the man outside. The moment his feet hit the pavement, a swarm of other officers surrounded him. The cameras on their body armor blinked red, capturing every second. Liam watched as the man was forced into the back of a police car. This time, he wasn't getting away. Back inside, Emma wiped her face and turned to Liam. Her voice was small, but clear. "Thank you. If you hadn't noticed, I don't know what would have happened to me." Liam felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to say something meaningful. But all he could manage was a small nod. "You're safe now." Emma smiled weakly, but then a new question hung in the air. What would happen to her now? Would she be able to go home? And would Liam ever see her again? Liam stood frozen as the flashing red and blue lights illuminated the night. The adrenaline was still coursing through his veins, but now that the danger had passed, he felt his legs grow weak. Just then, a car screeched to a stop near the police barricade. "Liam!" His mom rushed toward him, eyes wide with panic. Before he could say a word, she threw her arms around him, clutching him tightly. Her heartbeat thundered against his chest. "Are you okay? What happened? They said there was a—" She pulled back just enough to search his face. "Liam, tell me you're okay." Liam nodded slowly. "I'm okay, Mom." He turned and pointed toward the police cars. But she almost wasn't. His mom followed his gaze and saw Emma sitting in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a warm blanket. Her face still held traces of fear, but her shoulders weren't as tense anymore. She was safe. Tears welled up in Liam's mother's eyes as she pulled him into another hug. "Oh, honey, you saved her." Nearby, one of the officers approached Liam, his expression filled with respect. "You did something incredible today, kid," the officer said, crossing his arms. "Most people wouldn't have even noticed. But you paid attention. You spoke up. And because of that, a girl is going home tonight instead of—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "You should be proud of yourself." Liam shifted on his feet, feeling an unfamiliar mix of pride and disbelief. He hadn't thought about what he'd done in that way. He had just followed his gut, listened to that little voice inside him that said something was wrong. Emma turned to him from the ambulance. "Liam." He looked over, and she offered him the smallest, most genuine smile. "Thank you." Liam's chest tightened. He had no idea what to say. So instead, he just smiled back. But deep inside, one thought kept echoing in his mind. This couldn't be the end of it. He had done something today, something that mattered. And maybe, just maybe, he could do more. What will Liam do after this life-changing experience? By the next morning, Liam's world had completely changed. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications flooded in. Texts, missed calls, news alerts. At first, he didn't understand what was happening. Then, he saw the headline, "Teen saves girl from kidnapper after recognizing secret signal." His stomach flipped. The article had a photo of him and Emma from the night before. The caption underneath read, "A quick-thinking 14-year-old boy used his instincts and a simple hand signal to stop a child abduction in progress." Liam's mom burst into his room, phone in hand. "Liam, the news! They're talking about you." Before she could finish, his phone rang. An unknown number. He hesitated, then picked up. "Liam, this is Claire Robinson from Channel 5 News." The woman's voice was calm but excited. "Your story is inspiring people all over the country. Would you be willing to do an interview? We want to help spread awareness about the distress signal." Liam sat there, stunned. His story had gone viral. Thousands of people were commenting and sharing, not just praising him, but also talking about the importance of paying attention to signs of danger. Even celebrities had retweeted the news. One post read, If this young man hadn't noticed the hand signal, that girl might not be here today. This is why we have to pay attention to the people around us. Liam took a deep breath. He had never imagined being in this situation, but now he realized something. He had the chance to make a real impact. He turned to his mom and nodded. I want to do it. I want to tell people what to look for, so they can help too. His mom smiled proudly. A few hours later, Liam sat in front of a camera, the bright lights shining on him. The news anchor smiled warmly. Liam, you saved a life. How does that feel? He paused, choosing his words carefully. It feels like something anyone could have done, but most people don't know what to look for. That's why I want to share this message. So next time, someone else can help too. The anchor nodded. So, what should people be watching for? Liam held up his hand, forming the same distress signal Emma had used. If you ever see someone do this, he curled his thumb in and wrapped his fingers over it. They need help. Don't ignore it. Say something. Do something. Because you might be their only chance. The studio was silent. Then, the anchor turned to the camera. There you have it, folks. One small hand signal, one big difference. If Liam's story has taught us anything, it's that sometimes all it takes is one person paying attention. Liam exhaled. This wasn't just about what had happened last night. It was about what could happen next. Could Liam's story inspire others to start paying closer attention? A week later, Liam stood in front of his entire school assembly, his heart pounding in his chest. The auditorium was packed. Students, teachers, even local reporters who had heard about his story. But Liam wasn't nervous. He had a message to share. He took a deep breath, scanning the crowd, then spoke into the microphone. A few days ago, I was just a regular kid riding the bus home. I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't expecting to be a hero. The room was silent, hanging on to his every word. Liam held up his hand, forming the distress signal that had changed everything. But then, I saw this. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some students whispered to each other, recognizing the sign for the first time. Liam continued. I didn't know the girl. I didn't know her story. But I knew, deep down, that something was wrong. And that small signal? It was the difference between her making it home or never being seen again. A hush fell over the room. Then Liam spotted her. Emma, sitting in the front row, safe, alive, because he had paid attention. Her eyes shimmered with gratitude, and for a moment, Liam felt his throat tighten. This wasn't just his story, it was hers too. He took another breath and looked at his classmates. Most of us go through life assuming someone else will step in when something seems off. But what if you're the only one who notices? A few students nodded slowly, taking in his words. That's why I'm asking you all to stay alert. Speak up. Liam gripped the microphone tighter, because you never know whose life you might save. The room erupted in applause. Liam exhaled, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. He had done what he set out to do. He had shared his message. And now, maybe, just maybe, someone else would recognize the signal when it mattered most.